Howdy. We are live. I don't know why I feel it because it says right when I come on, my screen says, "You are live." Good to know that I'm alive. No, live. I'm both alive and live. How are we today? What's up? It is first Monday. We are going to dive in today and talk about 5 ways to mess up your screenplay. Yay! So normally I like to have like super positive like headlines and topics, but every once in a while I like to mix it up and like try to, shake things up, get people's attention to say, hey, it's possible to mess up your screenplay. And how can we do that? And so I also want to really remind people that whenever we do these, I'm Carolyn J. Carpenter. Hello, if you haven't seen me before. And we talk a lot in here about being a reader. A reader is someone who reads and analyzes screenplays for a living. And so we're always coming from a reader's perspective. And all this month and a bit into next month, we're going to be talking a lot about story, the importance of story, because it's really important, the story in a screenplay. And this is all kind of leading up to, we have an event, yay, a live event, a whole day. We're going to spend a whole day together. I think it's 6 hours together, really diving into, I'm going to show you how Shrek and The Matrix are the same movie. We've done this event before. This is the last time we're going to do this event in this way. So I'm really looking forward to it. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also adding 4 additional films this year to really show you how we're going to really lay it out with Shrek and The Matrix so you can really see it's kind of astounding. We have clips and ways to show you how these movies are so similar. And then we're going to show how once you understand how these movies are similar, it's very easy to apply it to other films. So we'll be doing that on January 1st. We'll be doing that on January 21st. And so let me just stick that up there. And so if you want to join us, we would love to have you. So while we do these free trainings, we're going to be talking about story as well. And when you do come to the event, you get a resource page, and then you'll have this video, and then you'll also have other videos and just trainings and handouts and all kinds of stuff on your resource page, so you can really get into it. We can geek out. Super exciting. So that's why we're talking about story. I wanted to just preface it with that. We're talking about story this month because it really is very important. So you'll see on your resource page if you do join the event, and then you can also see this also if you're watching on our YouTube channel. I do also have 6 things to make your screenplay irresistible. So we have the flip side too. It's not all bad. And so I want to dive in. I don't want to take too much time today, but I just want to dive into what are the things that we see as readers that will mess up a screenplay, that will really, what's the most common mistakes that we see that will make it so that a screenplay doesn't move forward. So I see people come in. Hello, good to see you. Hey, Chantel. Good. Thanks for saying hi. Feel free to say hi. Say hi in the comments. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in there. So I'm going to dive into 5 ways that I see as a reader. I've read over 11,000 screenplays, so I've seen a lot of these mistakes, and you'll see them. You don't need to read that many screenplays to see them. These are some of these mistakes you will see in movies, and I'm going to give you an example of that in one. Well, in that case, it's a little more intentional than it is a mistake. Hey there. Hi from Chicago. Nice to see you, Marianne. So greetings. I will show you kind of some examples of, a movie that has some of these mistakes, and you'll see them every once in a while in films, but you'll see them every day in screenplays. So you'll see them a lot in screenplays, all of the things that make a screenplay not get made, right? So sometimes some of these things slip through and the movie actually gets made because it's balanced by other things, right? So let's just dive into what are those things? What might they be? Do tell. So the very first one I want to start out with is a slow start. So it's really an interesting thing when you get a slow start with a screenplay. And a lot of people say their first 10 pages of your screenplay are the most important. A lot of people say that. And there's some truth to that. Those first 10 pages are very important. I think every page is very important. So I don't know that those are the most important pages, but they are significant. I was about to say solely or only, but no, they are significant because they are the first things that we say, right? First impression, they make the first impression. And often if if you have a slow start and the pages don't really ring true on those first 10 pages, some people say they won't read more. And I think that's true for some people. I read every page of every screenplay. Like I feel like if I really honor someone who has sat down in a chair and finished a screenplay. So I feel like if I'm a reader, I read things. So I'm going to read every single page always. But the thing that will happen is I will choose which screenplay I'm going to read next, often by those first couple of pages. So if I start on a screenplay and right out the gate, it's a really slow start. And what makes a slow start? Here's a couple of things. Really describing every little detail about, the surroundings. And sometimes there might be a method or a reason for that. But you can tell you can really tell right away if this is a stylistic thing, and there's either a sense of humor about it where you're going to see this, there's some like a super nerdy character and it's like reflecting that character, or there's like a really dark thing about it. Like you'll see right away. But usually when you see a lot of description in the opening couple of pages, it's just too much. It's too much describing every little like description of what the person is wearing. And unless we really need to know, you can get you don't have to describe someone's whole outfit. You can just say, their cat-eyed glasses. And right there, we get a sort of sense of the person with one piece of wardrobe. You don't have to describe, and their cheeky skirt, and they're like, you don't have to describe every little detail, right? So when you see that right out the gate, you'll know that this is, you'll get it right away. It's a slow start. And then also, sometimes dialogue will start in a very slow way where people are like, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? Oh, how's your mom? She's like super chit chatty. We want to, all throughout the screenplay, you want to get into a scene late and leave early in general. So we don't need, when you're coming into a restaurant, we don't need all of the sitting down and ordering and look at the menu and all of that. We can cut to, we're at the restaurant in the middle of a conversation. And in young writers, and by young, I mean people that it's their first screenplay, often you will see all this extraneous stuff. And so right out the gate, that slow start is something that will mess up your screenplay. And one of the reasons why it will make it so that if I'm going to decide, I have a bunch of screenplays I'm going to scroll through, I have a stack on my desk or whatever it might be, and I'm going to decide the order that I want to read things. And this is sort of counterintuitive. If I read it and I see right out the gate, oh, this is starting really slow, I actually might choose that one, but not for the reasons you might think. I would choose it because when I see a screenplay right out the gate that has a lot of problems, it's going to be much easier for me to get through it because it's going to be predictable. I already have seen these mistakes over and over. I'll be able to write a really solid coverage really fast because it's going to be like these. I already know kind of what the problems are going to be. It's like anything, if you're grading papers and you're grading, just a basic math problem versus trigonometry, it's going to be much easier to grade that math problem from a second grader than it is the trigonometry test. Like it's going to get more complicated in that when you get into a more advanced screenplay. So sometimes I might choose the one that is clearly not as advanced because I can get through it more quickly, and then that will get my workload off my desk or whatever. So it's sort of counterintuitive that someone would choose that, but it's not really a good thing, right? So, or sometimes if I really am in the mood and I want to dig into something good, then I wouldn't choose that screenplay. I would move on to something else because of those first few pages. I will always come back and I will always read all of the pages. But it does, if I know that, like, for instance, if I'm under the gun and some producer is like, we got to find something right now, and I open up those first 10 pages, that's not going to be the one I'll read. I'll move on to the next one until I find an opening that pulls me in. And then when I find that opening that pulls me in, I'll stick with that particular screenplay. So I hope that makes sense. I see everyone saying, hello, hi, you guys. Good to see you. Good to see you coming in from everywhere. Hello, Elizabeth and Eleni and Leslie. Nice to see you. Sometimes I can't see. Make sure that you give StreamYard. It says go to StreamYard.com and you can say that what your name is, because sometimes I can't see what your name is. So make sure you do that. Hello. So that's the first thing, is getting a slow start, describing every little detail about the environment, about the characters, have the characters chit chat. Another thing that will be really slow, I'm not going to go too much of a tangent, I'm going to control myself, is the whole first page is all a voiceover of explaining who we are. Well, I was born, I don't know why I get into some weird accent with that. I don't know what that is, but I was born in this small town, blah, 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 blah. I think voiceover should be used very sparingly in general, but when you see right out the gate, oh, this person's going to hit me over the head, meaning they're going to be really obvious about what this story is about, and they're going to tell me in a voiceover. And so often you'll see that in adaptations when someone's adapting a book, because it's very hard sometimes to have a character say what they're thinking. And so they'll do it via voiceover. So those are things that can slow you down right out the gate. And so voiceover can be very, very effective. And sometimes the hi, hello, how are you scenes can be very effective if there's an underlying subtext that's like, one character's like, okay, are we done with this? Or something. There's something has to be happening beyond that. So that will get you into, you got to get to that inciting incident. So for those of you that have attended our masterclass, that inciting incident is that thing that happens somewhere around page 5, page 10, maybe page 15, 20, but now we're getting pretty late. And over the years, that moment has moved forward and forward, I think, because we're click-through society now. They want to get to that moment as soon as possible where the big thing happens, the divorce, the breakup, the meeting someone, whatever it might be, that pushes the story into motion. And you want to get to that. So you want to be setting up who our protagonist is and getting to that first thing. And then the protagonist will be responding to that moment, the earthquake, the disaster, the breakup, whatever it might be. They'll be responding to that. And then they move into act 2. So their response and their, as they choose, Jerry Maguire has the manifesto. That's the inciting incident where he says, I need to change my life. This is not working out for me. He has the big kind of, moment. This is it. And he comes in and then he's like, I'm out, I'm leaving, and who's with me? And Renee Zellweger is like, okay, all of that then goes. And then they step into act 2 when they're like, okay, now what are we going to do? So as we go into the now what are we going to do phase, we're starting into act 2, right? Dorothy steps out of the house into Oz. Now where am I and what am I going to do? We're stepping into act 2. So, and this is where most of the problems will take place. If you have a slow start in a screenplay, most likely you're going to have these problems moving forward as well. These are the things that you'll see the most commonly. These are the problems that will happen in a slow start screenplay. We'll typically have these things. And so act 2, and that's just partly because act 2 is so much longer, right? You have more room to make more mistakes. Hey there, guys. Hey, Gary, nice to see you. Hello. Yeah. No, StreamYard loves you, whoever you are. Sorry about that. Love to see you guys here. So as we move into act 2, I'm going to give you kind of the main things and then little subplots of what will mess up a screenplay. So the kind of main umbrella is that you have a meandering middle, what I call a meandering middle. And that is just like the act 2 is just a big old soup pile of just meandering along. And one of the things, and this is the next one, so we're going to kind of combine these. The next big mistake that I see so commonly is you'll see it all the time when you're reading screenplays. Oh, and I also want a little side note here. For those of you, I'm talking about when you're writing a screenplay here, right? But I'm always coming from a reader's perspective. So for my readers out there that are working as readers, these are the things you would say in your coverage, or if you're coaching a writer, when you are approaching the project and you're talking about the project, these are the things you can use and say. These things that I come up with, like slow start. Well, slow start is pretty obvious, but meandering middle. The next one I'm going to talk about, I kind of name things to make it a little bit easier. So these aren't like industry names. These are things I've come up with to make it easier. So when you have a meandering middle in your screenplay, one of the things that contributes to that is what I call it squirrel syndrome, or squirreling subplots. So you've got subplots that squirrel off from your main plot. Really, really common. You see this in movies sometimes. You see it in screenplays every day. So it's basically, we're traveling along, and I always give this kind of silly example. It's not real, but Dorothy's traveling along on her way to Oz, and suddenly she sees a Starbucks, and so she stops in at Starbucks, and then she develops this relationship with this guy, and he's super cute, and they're thinking, oh, maybe we'll have a little romance here. Just making this up. And then she decides, she gets her latte and she's like, oh, maybe later. And then she leaves off, and we've just spent this whole thing kind of developing this thing that didn't matter at all. And so one of the things about why The Wizard of Oz holds up so well with longevity is because the structure is really solid. The subplots, each character's subplot of wanting a heart, a brain, courage, like literally supports her subplot, right? So every subplot supports her journey. And so every subplot needs to be supporting that hero's journey. Whatever that protagonist is in, every subplot is some leg of that. We learn something about the protagonist or about what they're going to face, or we get some backstory. We get something that has to do with that, as opposed to we meet some really fun character, and this, we get in love, we fall in love with our characters. And so we meet, you come up with this really fun character, and then you love this character so much that suddenly you're off in one of your supporting characters' world, and you're building that world of the supporting character, and you get so into it that you kind of forget about your protagonist. This happens all the time. And so this squirreling subplot thing will create to a meandering middle, right? And the other thing that kind of creates to it, so we've got your slow start, right? And then we have this meandering middle, which has the number 3 thing out of the 5, which is the swirling subplots. And then the other thing that really happens all the time, and they kind of all go together, right, is just flatlining in general. So flatlining has to do with, if you have a slow start and you're describing all this stuff, that if someone does that to begin with, most likely they're going to be doing it through the whole screenplay, which is going to flatline everything. So your screenplay always is building. There's always peaks and valleys. It's either building or releasing, building and releasing. And so you'll get to that inciting incident. We react. We have a moment. Okay. We take a breath for a second. It should have this kind of breathing feeling, right? So we take a breath. Okay, we're in Oz. All right. Here we go. And then we're off to the next thing, right? And then we're building to the next thing. Now there should be halfway through is the midpoint. In between that, you're going to have, some people call it plot point 1. There's different terms that people use, but you're going to have sort of peaks and valleys as the character meets new people that are either thwarting them as the villain comes in, or you've got people that are obstacles and things that are obstacles, but they're not necessarily villains. Like the Wizard in The Wizard of Oz is an obstacle, like causing problems for her, but I wouldn't call him a villain. The Wicked Witch is obviously the villain, right? So, but you're going to be meeting these people, these supporting characters that are going to reflect what's going on with the protagonist, right? And then it's going to like create these peaks and valleys as we head to that midpoint. That's the very first kind of major build, right? And in that midpoint, something happens that just, we turn everything around in some way. They either, the protagonist learns something, becomes injured, solves the first part, finds out who the first thing, who killed the person. Now we got to find that person, like some big piece of information or some big shift in the character happens. In the story event coming up, we use Shrek because Shrek was written by readers and it has a solid structure. Shrek literally at the midpoint, like almost, I think actually is exactly on the page count of halfway through the screenplay, he gets the princess and he turns around and comes back. Literally turns around, right? Literally the whole story turns around. So every script should have something where things turn. They take a turn in some way. Sometimes it's literal like that, where the protagonist is running towards, I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to get this guy. Oh my gosh, that guy died. Okay, now what am I going to do? Okay, now I need to, now they're chasing me. They think I did it. Now I'm running away. Like that is a very common one actually in action. In Born Identity, I would imagine at least one of those has that particular thing, or running toward, or the other way, running away. They said they're trying to catch me. I need to solve this crime. Boom, halfway through, I figured out who it is. Now I'm going in another direction to find that person, right? If you don't have these peaks and valleys, if you don't have that midline that you're heading towards, you're flatlining. And it's really, really common. And instead, you're describing everything. You've got subplots going all over the place. Like that's what will cause a flatlining screenplay, right? So you want to just keep building towards that thing. Keep making sure that you have, those peaks and valleys, those things where you're like really, really building things and really, really making it really, really interesting, right? So those are 4 out of the 5 things. And so you've got your slow start, and then you've got your meandering middle that includes your swirling subplots. And then that will also create flatlining. So you don't want flatlining, obviously. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? And so, yeah, exactly, Carla. Really great comment. I should be good at this. It's how my life is full of peaks and valleys. Exactly. Ding, 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 ding. You win the prize. Yeah, exactly. So does it mean voiceover can be good or bad, or should they be avoided or sparse? I would say, in my opinion, it's only my opinion after reading a lot of screenplays, if you cannot do voiceover, I would not do it. If it really needs it, or if it's adding something really unique to it. I love the voiceover in Weatherman, for example. I love the voiceover in The Big Lebowski. Like when it adds some really, even in Raising Arizona, I mean, we go down Coen Brothers land. They use voiceover. When they use voiceover, they use it really well. What we see in young writers and what we see in screenplays that aren't getting made is voiceover explaining what we already know. Often, like we already just saw that, and now the voiceover is going to explain what just happened. So just really look at the voiceover that you're using and see, am I explaining something that I can show visually. It's not lights, camera, voiceover. It's like this camera action, right? We want that action happening. We want to be able to see what's going on. We don't need to be told, here's what happened, here's what you should be feeling, which actually is a perfect segue into the last one, which is forcing feelings. When you force the feelings of things, you can make your screenplay very contrived, hard to believe. Audiences will go with you. There's suspension of disbelief, meaning they want to suspend. They want to be out in the middle of space trying to figure out what's happening. They want to go on the adventure with you. But if you go on this adventure and you try to manipulate too much, I mean, all writing is manipulation to some degree, right? We are writing stories to create feelings. That's what we want. We want to inspire feelings. But as Carlos so beautifully pointed out, it's how my life is full of peaks and valleys. We want it to authentically reflect people's lives. And we talk about this so much in our programs about how writing and life are so intertwined. And the more that we can use our sloppy, lovely, exciting, terrifying, horrible, depressing, traumatic, cool, romantic things in our life and really get those on the page, that's what people will resonate with. If you try to contrive it and you try to make characters that are like, you're trying to manipulate, but you're going to have this character come in and they're going to do this very specific thing, and you get too integrated in trying to manipulate, just breathe, relax, and let the characters be authentic. And sometimes when you're authentic, it really shows. And you'll see in the other video that we have that are the 6 things that make your screenplay irresistible. Authenticity is one of them. The thing that really pushes a screenplay above all the rest is that it marries the 2 things of being authentic and being very universal. We all relate to this. We all get it. We really we've been there. We understand it. And it's original and unique. And that can be really hard to do, right? It can be really hard to have something that's unique, but that everyone gets. But the thing that everyone gets is humanity. The thing that everyone understands is emotion and unworthiness. Everyone can relate to that. Not everyone can relate to being a sports agent in Jerry Maguire, but everyone can relate to feeling so unworthy that he's got to scream, "Show me the money," right? We can relate to the desperation of Jerry Maguire. We don't really relate to that he's a football. Well, some people do. Football agents will. As a matter of fact, football agents will be like, "Oh, it's nothing like that." Often. So, but it is that idea that we really want to be authentic in the characters that we're creating. And this is where the mastery comes in. This is where the more advanced things come in, is really like mastering that ability to take that messy, sloppy, lovely, beautiful, tragic life and be able to put it on the page. That's what really the cream rises to the top, when someone can really do that well. And that's what you want to try to do. Sometimes you'll see when you're watching a movie and you say the 3 words, these are the 3 little words that I think really encapsulate when someone is manipulating and not inspiring. It's when you say, "Oh, come on." When you're watching a movie and you say those words like, "Come on, come on, oh, come on." When you have that reaction, something has gone over the top and it's not authentic anymore. You don't believe it anymore. Something has happened. And which is one of the ways that you solve that is one of the characters in the screenplay goes, "Oh, come on." If a character comments on the unbelievable situation they're in, we'll relax and be like, "Okay, they don't believe it either." And then we'll accept more. So when you find that you're stuck, if you just have one character being the voice of the audience, being like, "This is weird," or "I can't," Adam Sandler's a master at this, where he's like kind of the audience's perspective all the time in his movies, where he's kind of has this look where he's the double take look. And that's being the audience, like, "Well, that guy's weird and that guy's weird." And it's a beautiful device that he uses to be able to do outrageous things, because his character reacts to, "I don't believe this is happening." And that helps the audience accept that it's happening. So those are the moments. So I just watched, I want to give this example because this is an interesting example of the movie Enemy that I don't know how recent it is, but I recently saw it. Jake Gyllenhaal. Like, he's amazing. It's the guy that directed Dune and Sicario, like major people, right? And so it's an interesting film. I recommend it in terms of it's, especially for those of you that study films, because they're trying to do something really unique. In my opinion, right out the gate. He has a doppelganger. He realizes there's someone out there that looks exactly like them. But the thing to me that I never got around, and it threw me off so much in the beginning that I was kind of out for the whole thing. And that was that he has this, in my opinion, over the top, unintentionally hilarious reaction to seeing his doppelganger. As opposed when if you saw someone that looks exactly like you, he just sees them as an extra in a movie. But his initial reaction is like, he's just horrified and he's terrified and he's shaking and he's going to call the guy. And it's like, and if you saw the guy committing a murder, then maybe, but he just, and all of us watching the film were like, why is he reacting like that? And then all the characters are reacting like, it's like, what the heck? And and the music, and I mean, he's big on the raw kind of music anyway. And so it's like all this like dark music. This is so dark. And it was out. Like it was so manipulative and inauthentic that it never pulled me in. Later, as it goes on, and then it wasn't really even until watching the special features and seeing the interview that I got, okay, see, I mean, I saw what they were going for. I kind of understood what was happening pretty early on. And it was like, oh, okay, this is an interesting exploration for sure. And it's, major filmmakers. So obviously the movie gets made, and I should read the screenplay because probably on the page it's really interesting, but I don't know what, and it's definitely really dark and it's a thriller, but it was super forcing the thriller thing. All they needed was for the doppelganger to do one sort of suspicious thing, but that never happened. And there was no reason for him to be like, so like trying to get the key in the door. Like it was a little over the top. So I want to give that example because sometimes these things do end up in films for sure. And in this case, it was an exploration. They were trying something. This was a total experimental film. So it's a little bit different. And I'm all down. Like, I'm down. Like, let's try experimental things for sure. We should be doing that. But when you're trying to get your screenplay sold and you're a brand new writer and you're a screen reader and you're helping these writers finish their screenplays and you're trying to help them get that script to the screen, that's our job as readers, right? That's our whole thing. We want to get that script to the screen. So it's our job to go, okay, you have a slow start, you have a meandering middle, you're flatlining, you have scrolling subplots, and then you're forcing feelings. These are really pretty, as you can see, pretty major things, right? So we really want to make sure that these things you're nipping these things at the butt. So like using your imagination, but with real life examples. Exactly. Because our imagination, worry is our imagination gone awry, right? We all use our imagination every day to imagine all the terrible things that might happen. And a lot of people, especially not you, but people that aren't writing, people that don't write, people that aren't in creative types, I think are actually really good at that because that is their creative outlet. Worry is a creative outlet. When we start going down a path of, but then what this person, and writing stories about what someone might think, say, do, we don't have the full story, so we write it ourselves. That's how we do that all day, every day. You're doing it right now about this, about me, about your story, about your screenplay, about the movie, whatever. We're writing stories all day, every day. So if we can take those stories that we inherently write, and we can take those stories that everybody kind of relates to, how we don't get an email, we email someone and we don't hear back. And then we've written a story about how they hate us, or something's happened to them, or there's just or maybe their email's just down, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they're taking a break from screens. Who knows? But we write stories all day long, right? So can we take the stories that we write all day long? Can we take the moments that we have and can we put those on the page so that they're authentic? Exactly. Yay, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. Come on. And really, that's narrowing it down to one word. Really? I love it. So good, Carla. So yeah, you guys have some really great examples, really good stuff. Gary Tucker, oh, this is a good discussion. Was the wizard a MacGuffin or a red herring? A little bit of both. There's so many MacGuffins in the Wizard of Oz. And if you're in our course, I'm like hesitant to say what I think they are because it's in our course. And when we first started the course, I in my head was like, I know what the MacGuffin is. And for those of you who don't know what a MacGuffin is, look at it. No, it's like I want to keep it secret because MacGuffin is such a great thing that Hitchcock came up with, and it's basically the thing in the movie that everyone wants. And so, but doesn't really matter to the story. Like it doesn't really make a difference in the long run. Covenant of the Ark is one of the best examples. So they're all after the covenant, but really when it comes down to it, it ends up in a shed somewhere, right? It didn't really matter to the whole story. So that's some a Maltese Falcon. They're all chasing this one thing, and a lot of the times the suitcase in Pulp Fiction, it glows, all of that. We never even find out what's in the suitcase. Suitcase didn't really matter. It's just gives us a device to make us move forward. So yes, the wizard, you could identify the Wizard of Oz. He's more of an obstacle than a MacGuffin. However, the broom, go get me the broom of the Wicked Witch of the West. She kills her to get the broom, murders her. I got the broom. Oh, yeah, the broom. Just set the broom over there. I'll sweep up later. Broom means nothing. So it's like, yeah, that's a MacGuffin. That's one of the MacGuffins. There's many in the Wizard of Oz, which I love. And then as you look, you'll see them all over the place now as you realize, oh, we didn't really need that thing. It was just to drive us to the next step in the story. So yeah, there are definitely secrets, and there are definitely things that help us. What do they help with? They help combat flatlining because they give us the peaks and valleys. We got to get that broom. So now we've got this, like, we have this motivation. We have this thing driving us. That's going to be the thing that gets us home, even though later it has, and no one ever addresses it either. She never says, like, wait a minute, I just killed someone to get this broom. At least let me take the broom home. So these are really, really good examples. And I love that you guys are giving it. Okay, this is a super long comment. Sorry. Yeah, there's Hallmark films. Well, Hallmark holiday films are very certain. So I watched a 2010 Hallmark. Well, okay, so there's so many. I'm unpacking so many things in your first sentence. So 2010 Hallmark holiday film, almost a period piece, right? Not quite, but we're getting there because period pieces. 2000 is definitely a period piece. 1990s definitely a period piece. Hate to break it to you, and structures shift a bit. Like I said, the inciting incident has moved more forward and forward over the years because we are such a soundbite society now that we want things to happen more quickly. So the antagonist told a group of female friends that they needed to get home and do what housewives are supposed to do. I missed the next 5 minutes of the film trying to process that statement. I love it. Made me lose respect for the character of the wife for being married to him. So I'm not sure. You said it's the antagonist, so that might have been the intent, right? They're trying to make you not like the antagonist. So if they might be making you trying to lose respect. Although I'm not sure what you mean by if the character is the antagonist that you're talking about. So sometimes they'll have an antagonistic or an obstacle character in more modern films, especially in rom-coms. They'll have antagonists, and rom-coms are often very one-dimensional and very much they're giving you very standard sweeping generalizations, stereotypes, that kind of thing, so that we instantly dislike them. They want you to get there really fast. And so that can be a device that people use for sure. Yeah, it would be interesting, Katrina, to read Enemy and rewatch. And in the special features, to his credit, he's like, you got to watch this film more than once. And I was kind of like, once was good for me. But I can see what he's saying, why you would want to. But it is an interesting exploration for sure. Eyes Wide Shut is another one that's kind of like that. Inception. There's all kinds of films where they play, even Fight Club, Sixth Sense. Those are more about twisting endings. But these are ways, when you look at those films that have twisting endings, they're doing something that then, which is brilliant in films when it works well. Like, it's brilliant. Sixth Sense is brilliant because then you go back and you want to watch it again because you want to go like, how did I miss that? Or I'm sure there's clues, whatever. And then so many more things make sense. The locking of the door, all of the things make sense, right? That's when a film works really well. When you want to see it again, to have the things that you were confused about suddenly make sense. That's beautiful when that happens. So I hope this is helpful. These are kind of the 5 big things that could mess up a screenplay. Definitely check out the 6 things that make a screenplay irresistible as well. And if you really want to dive in with me, I'm really looking forward to this event that we're going to do in January 21st, where we're going to spend the whole day doing exactly this. But we'll have we're going to do it on Zoom, and I'll be able to talk to people, and we're going to do breakout rooms. It's always really fun. You'll meet some really cool people there. And I can already see from the people that have signed up already, we've had a lot of people sign up already, and it's a really great group. It's going to be a really fun day. I'm really looking forward to it. And we're going to dive really deep into both Shrek and the Matrix, but also 4 additional films that we have chosen that will go with that, where we're really talking about how this is universal. It's the last time we're going to do this event, so we'd love to have you. You can see it's on the screen there, HollywoodGatekeepers.com story. You can click on that, and you can see. Maybe someone can throw that in the chat for me, because I can't do it. I can't access the chat, but you'll see. All it does is show you the event. So don't worry. You can click on that, and it'll show you all the information. You can see if you want to do it. But and we'll continue always. This is our first Monday. Every first Monday of every month, we do some kind of free training to talk about something. So we'll do it again in January. This is what we do the first Monday of every month. I love these sessions where you can come in. I get to know you. You can get to know me. We can talk about films. It's really, really great. So I hope that's helpful. Those 5 things. So as readers, those are the 5. Some of we'll be looking for way more than 5, but those are kind of the 5 umbrella things that a lot of things will go in under that. But those are kind of the main things that you will see in a screenplay that isn't working. And so these are the things that you can tell to the person right in your coverage. And for those of you who don't know, coverage is kind of like a book report. You read that screenplay, and then you write a coverage, and you say, what was this film about? And then you say, what worked and what needs work in the film. Thank you for throwing that in the chat. You guys are the best. Super MacGuffins are secrets. Super great to see you guys today. Really love this, and super good to be here. And we're going to hop on over to Instagram. I'm going to do the same thing, although it's always a little bit different because this is totally off the cuff. I mean, I know the 5 things, but I never know what might happen. So we're going to hop over to Instagram. We're going to do it again there. And I hope you enjoy it. So let us know in the Facebook group. Say hi. Good to see you guys today. Thanks for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you at that story event. We'll talk to you soon.